Welcome to the Leadership Window podcast with Dr. Patrick Jinks. Each week, through a social sector lens, Patrick interviews leaders and experts and puts us in touch with trends and tips for leading effectively. Patrick is a board-certified executive coach, a member of the Forbes Coaches Council, a best-selling author, award-winning photographer, and a professional speaker. And now, here's Dr. Patrick Jinks.
It's episode 148 of the Leadership Window. Glad you are along. If you've been following us, I don't know, the last couple of months, or if you're a regular listener, hopefully you can tell that my voice is almost all the way back. And for those of you that don't know, I had open heart double bypass surgery just over 3 months ago. And part of what I dealt with there was that I had the vocal nerve was damaged in my chest, and that paralyzed the left side of my vocal cord. And for about a month, I couldn't speak at all. I had no voice. Now I can. But what I still can't do is I can't sing yet. And I love to get in my music room and pick up a guitar and just play and sing some songs. That's getting there too, though. So lots of progress. I feel good. I feel blessed. 2026 is off to a fantastic start, and we have a fantastic guest on the show today, and one that I know is going to be of great interest to many of our listeners in the world we're in, particularly those of you that are leading in the nonprofit sector, which is not all of our listeners, but probably a majority of them. Javin van Gronigan is our guest today, all the way from San Diego. And Javin is the founder of a software platform you may have heard of called Donately. And it's a donation solution that has really raised a ton of money, close to $200 million in donations across the sector that he's worked with. He's worked with a lot of local organizations, but he's also worked with the big prominent box brands of nonprofits like the Red Cross and United Way. And part of this is not only helping raise money, but also helping to reduce costs. And part of his mission was about, he saw these concealed costs and these complex fee structures that some of the traditionally used software platforms for nonprofits, just too much for them, too overkill, complex, hard to implement. And so Donately is the opposite of that. We'll talk some about the product, but mainly we also want to just talk about the concept of fundraising in the digital world. We'll try to tie that into leadership as much as we can. I guess I would say that the leadership part of it is that Javin's helping organizations be strategic about their marketing and not just, do what we can when we can, but let's get strategic. I'm going to let him say more about his background and how he came to this space and what he's on a mission to accomplish in the world. But Javin, thank you for carving out time for us out there on the West Coast. You poor thing in the middle of winter sitting in San Diego. I don't know how you do it, but thanks for the sacrifice and for being here today.
Yeah, it's pretty rough out here. No, I appreciate you having me. I think there's a lot we can cover today. So excited to get into the conversation. Like you said, creative director, founder, Donately, as well as 50 and 50, which is it's kind of service side of the house, doing kind of brand, web, and marketing, just so people know kind of where my angle and my approach comes from. When we start to talk about AI or technology or fundraising, I really live in that digital space and really trying to see that this digital world we're creating is an ethically defensible one. So excited to cover what we got in store.
I'm interested in that term. An ethically defensive. Jump right into that. That phrase made me curious. What does that mean?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, getting into this business and trying to really focus a lot on, a lot of people call them passion projects, but for me, it was like, how do we create an agency and create software that really is focused in on the specifics of what we're passionate about? And for me, that had a lot to do with nonprofit work, social impact work. And so it was just a tricky thing to define. So for us, saying ethically defensible really doesn't have us pin down, political agendas or choosing sides. It's really, are our clients making the world better? Is the cause recognizably better for the planet, non-divisive, grounded in love? And we can never really define exactly what was a good client or a good fit. And so, purpose driven was maybe a little too vague. And so this idea of ethically defensible is really like gave us a little wiggle room, but gave us the boundaries to say, hey, this is a good company that should exist, and we can, put our name behind it and the work that we're doing with them. So yeah, that one kind of stuck as a fun way to kind of describe the clients and the type of groups we're trying to work with.
I like that. It says that you're choosy about who you work with, and it's not just about anyone that comes to you and wants to pay you for a service. And that sounds to me like you want to be a real partner with the clients that you serve. And so that leads me to this question. How would you describe how you partner with a nonprofit client? So for example, fractional work and outsourced marketing work has become a bigger and bigger thing, particularly for nonprofits who might not be able to pay a full-time chief marketing officer or strategist, or even sometimes the social media coordinator level roles and those kinds of things. How would you describe the partnerships that you create with the organizations you link up with?
Yeah. Well, I think being particular about who we work with kind of meant that we had to be pretty flexible about how we work with them. Hopefully that makes sense. Like being in the nonprofit and social impact space was kind of defining our market and narrowing our market quite a bit already. So when we said, hey, that's only who we want to work with, we'll know that niche really, really well. Then it came down to, okay, well, we need to be able to really work with a lot of those types of groups. And so I think the way in which we operate, at least in the services side of things, is there's a lot of flexibility, right? A lot of people will come to us specifically saying, hey, we need brand. Hey, we need a website. Hey, we need a social campaign. And we can do that, and we can fix bid projects in that way. But more often than not, when people don't know exactly where they need to go or how their message needs to be put in market, or they've got a, unique value proposition challenge, we'd like to come alongside people on more of a partnership approach and not really be a monthly retainer, so to speak. So we have kind of built some ways that we can do that. We come alongside clients. We kind of call it our engagement operating system, where we come in, we audit, we get a really good understanding of who they are and what their challenges are. And then we work on building a roadmap of projects that we can attack over time. So when we are in our most strategic seat, that's what we're doing, is we're stepping in and really getting a really good audit and understanding of what's missing, what's needed, whether it's a brand issue or a technology issue or a campaigning issue that Donately can help solve. Ruthlessly prioritize those, right? We can't boil the ocean and do everything all the time. So what efforts are going to be the most valuable? And then we help come alongside organizations to either tactfully, fractionally support them in a leadership role, or in a tactical delivery of even things like social assets or, community management, things like that.
And just, this will sound maybe like a dumb question, but when we say digital fundraising, for example, I want to talk about marketing in general, of course, but when we say digital fundraising, are we talking about any kind of online giving, anything that leads to an online gift, like a credit card payment on a website or a text to give, or just anything that's not a check and that is initiated through an online transaction somewhere, or even the whole relationship?
Yeah, I think it's hard to separate anything into being offline anymore, because even sending direct mail and getting like there's so much technology built into that. So I think when we think of digital fundraising, it's really fundraising in this like digital first era, right? And that's changing a lot. We'll probably talk a little bit about AI and how much that's different from what it was 5 years ago or even a year ago. But to us, it's really taking an approach where you recognize that most of your fundraising at this point is going to be online. And that's not every organization. There's still a lot of organizations that do more traditional forms of fundraising, but it's the approach where you are recognizing the digital focus, and how important it is to be able to scale your fundraising in those digital channels, whether that's social or email or,
I
stuff
think
like
that can be very helpful to us in this conversation right now, because I work with a lot of nonprofits whose fundraising or at least the transaction is still by check. Large donors who will send a check, corporations who will send a check, or special events, a golf tournament, a gala, a thing. So it's not really, and for many of them, thinking about online giving, so is the term I hear a lot, rather than digital fundraising. But for many of them, that is still a really untapped space. And partly because they don't know how to do it, how to attract, we know how to find the historic donors. And again, through our events and engagements and the mail and even through our newsletters and things like that. But many organizations still, I think, see the digital space as minimal, because they don't know how to do it. And so they often are even wondering, is this something we should even get into? Is it going to make that big of a spill? How would you respond to that? What in your experience, or what can we tell nonprofit leaders about the real power and potential of that digital space?
Yeah. I mean, if you talk about, maybe I'll jump into two areas. One is like where your current donors have come from and where your future donors will come from. And I think a lot of organizations are stuck in this space of taking care of their current donors, and they may have come from that era of check writing or big galas, and they might still come from those spaces, right? Corporate donors, high net worth donors. Oftentimes that's a personal relationship, and a $10,000 check, you might as well take the check and not do an online transaction and waste the fees and all of that stuff. But as the world is coming online at the speed and pace that it has been doing so, you are leaving so much on the table if you've not put your brand and your story out in those channels to solicit more funding. Organizations are in very different, parts of that journey. Some maybe don't have a website at all, and they're just putting some stuff on Facebook, and others have invested heavily in their online presence. There are steps that you can take in every one of those areas, and maybe we can come back to that later. I don't know that I want to go down that rabbit hole right now, but I think to not start to push yourself in that direction and recognize how many digital channels there are for you to go and solicit additional funding for the work you're doing, you risk becoming a little bit obsolete, right? Every classroom, every kid, every student, and even, I just turned 46. People my age, almost everything is online. And if you're not allowing people, you're not meeting them where they are and allowing them to transact in the ways they see easiest, the chances are you're leaving that money out there, and your cause can't grow as quickly. So it can be challenging, right? It is scary, right? To be able to get out there, but organizations like us are out there. There are platforms out there that make it easier. And hopefully by the end of today, we'll go through some stuff that kind of helps organizations think through how they can get online and be found in this new kind of AI era, which a lot of organizations are starting over. I'll say that too, right? Like the way you used to be found a few years ago is changing drastically. And so you kind of can jump in where we're all making a lot of changes to our online presence in order to be found the way that generative AI and generative search is taking place.
Well, you bring up a great segue into a conversation about platform versus strategy. If we go back to, CRM, CRM was the thing, and still is, but let's get a CRM like, I don't know. It could be anything. It could be Salesforce, Active Campaign. It could be, I'm thinking of the newsletter. I can't think of it right now. They do a lot of nonprofit. Everybody uses them. I can't think of it. It's a newsletter that has become a little more of a, contact
Constant
something.
contact?
Constant
Yeah.
contact.
Constant
Thank you.
contact.
Gosh, I
Yeah,
couldn't
that's
think of
one
it.
of them.
You know, so, and everyone thought, oh, well, we'll get constant contact, or we'll get Salesforce, or we'll get Active
Yeah.
Campaign, thinking that if we get the right platform, we'll raise more money because it's CRM, it's customer relationship management. This will do it for us. But just getting the platform is not what does the trick.
No.
It doesn't create the relationships, foster the relationships. It doesn't raise the money. It's a platform through which, you know, yes, research and management and workflow of enhancing your relationships and then the transaction, but it's not going to do the work for you. It's a place where the work is held and managed. And I think that is often a big miss for a lot of organizations. I see, let's get text to give software, and then we'll suddenly get a bunch of text gifts. There's a strategy for how to even make the world know that you have it, and inspire them to want to use it, and that kind of thing. So my question for you, with all that being said, with Donately, and it might be different with 50 and 50, and maybe this is the integration, but with Donately, how much of your work in setting organizations up with a product like that is about the platform, and how much of it is about the strategy? What percentage do you find, you know, your contribution to that partnership with nonprofits? I hope that question makes sense. I think it does.
Yeah. Yeah, I can jump in. I mean, I think that's why, you know, when we started the podcast, I introduced myself as the, you know, creative director, founder of two different organizations. One is on the services side and one is on the product side. And I think it's important to differentiate, right? These products that are out there. And I think the new wave of that would be the fundraising tools, right? You have Fundraise Up and you have GiveButter and you have GoFundMe, and they are a plug into your site and make your site a high converting ecosystem, right? Put a form in there, link off to campaign pages. And so it's the next version, right? CRMs are powerful. These fundraising tools are now the little piece that makes your site transactional. And Donately is in some capacities one of those tools as well, which is making sure that your site can transact and can be focused on that conversion. And I think a lot of people, like you said, then think, oh, well, now that I have that, donations are just going to start pouring in. Oh, I have a button where you can start a fundraiser. Now people are just going to start creating fundraisers. And that isn't the case. I think there's a lot of over promising there with platforms where they say, oh, we're going to do the strategy for you. Like HubSpot, a powerful tool. Love the tool. Love the automations you can build. That's kind of where I lean and typically like to get organizations onto that. That's my kind of CRM of preference. But it is not telling us what to campaign. It is not telling us how to put content out there, who you are, how you should go against your competition. That's the strategic side, which is either has to be done in the organization or has to be done in more of a fractional leadership or an agency relationship where somebody can come in and help you know how to share your brand and knows your key messaging and your story. And then those tools become means to an end, right? Now, there are ways we've been working really hard to combine that. I think right now we have a really interesting opportunity to combine web technology and content creation and all these conversion tools with this new world of AI and generative content to get to a place where we can see a world where all of those things are done together. Now, AI is still too loose and definitely needs to be managed. And there are a ton of kind of human touch points that need to be in there, but its ability to do homework, to recognize your differences in comparison to your competition, to recognize key events, things taking place, what's going to resonate, throw ideas at you. Have you vet? Yeah, that's us. Yeah, that's something we do. Yes, that's something that would resonate with our donors. You strategically step in to tell it where to go, and then it can help you again in the content creation and recognizing what needs to be out there. There's this really interesting blend that's, I think we're all kind of juggling and running with excitement towards some of these tools and how they can help us as service providers. But that world is kind of coming online where the tools and the technology and the content and the AI elements can get us closer to it being both a strategic tool and a conversion tool and a donor acquisition tool, kind of all built into one. And I'm getting a little ahead of some things that we're launching this year, but that's what's exciting me, is solving exactly what you said, is this platform and this donate button and this backend tool that has an integration to Salesforce. Like, that just puts the data where it needs to be, but it does not answer the tough questions around, okay, what do we do with this? What's the next right investment we should make? Where are donors going to resonate with this content? That's not a SaaS product. That's a strategic, either fractional leader or, a human intelligence still that needs to own that.
I'm going to ask your opinion on something that I see come up a lot, particularly with smaller nonprofits whose budgets are quite limited, and they would love to have marketing staff, but they sometimes can't determine whether or not they need a strategist or a coordinator. Like, what do you do first? Maybe we have some tools and we have a Facebook page and an X account and TikTok or whatever. We just need someone to make sure we're posting, and we someone that maybe can even get into some of the automation with CRMs and newsletters and understands even a little bit about, closing rates and those kinds of things. Or we need someone who is the real strategist and understands the strategy of marketing, but then they may not have the time or maybe even the expertise to do the on-the-ground work. Where do you start when you're a small nonprofit and you need to get into this space to remain relevant at the least and thrive at the best? Where would you recommend starting? How do you start this process?
Well, I will admit first a common mistake that I've made as a leader, which is to try to hire both at the same time and just kind of duck it under this analogy of like, you got to wear both hats, right? I've made that mistake quite a bit, where it's, hey, I need you to kind of come up with the ideas and then execute those ideas. And it's a very tricky kind of unicorn type of person to find. So I will lead by saying, at least I've, in 15 years of being an entrepreneur, never figured out how to kind of just bring in one person who can do those drastically different things when it comes to strategic marketing versus, production work. I would say if you hire wrong in that scenario, you do waste a lot of time. And so this is one of those areas where consulting or fractional leadership is a really good short-term clarifier and something we're dipping into, right? As an agency, there's a lot of people that come to us that say, we're just not quite sure yet what we need to do. And you say, okay, well, come back to us when you do know that. This is where we're kind of leaning in this year and recognizing like a lot of people just need insights. And so we have kind of fractional leadership deliverables and consulting services where we can kind of unpack that and then say, here's what you need, because it's hard. Everybody's different, right? You got to look at the strategy that's in place. You got to look at the marketing plan. You got to look at the analytics, right? Are we, do the economics make sense, right? If you say, hey, we've got this list of 20,000 emails and we have this, list of event attendees and we're trying to raise this much money. Like, it takes a pretty sophisticated marketer and salesperson to go, this adds up. Like, we can hunker down on these numbers and drive this forward for 3 to 6 months and hit that. That's a pretty challenging job, but somebody can step in and help you see that. Hey, your messaging's great. This is all, you just need somebody to put a bunch of content out there, right? Just be active, keep your newsletter running, get 3 or 4 social posts out, make sure you market the heck out of that gala that you're doing and just get into production. So I think it really depends. It really depends on somebody's, can somebody step into your organization and see that you've got a clear strategy in place? Great. Then you just need implementers and they're less expensive and you can really focus on just getting stuff in market. Or somebody might step in and be like, hey, look, it doesn't matter how much of this strategy you put out there. It may not work because you just don't have the audience, the following, the reach, the web traffic. Like, it's pretty easy to step in and see sometimes, like, if you look at these numbers, like, it's just not going to add up and you need to strategically come up with something different if that's the goal that you have in mind for the year. Yeah,
that's good. And I would tend to lean that way too. I think particularly in marketing, and there's a couple of others, finance is sometimes another one where fractional work is really beneficial. because it can actually cost less. And particularly if you can get in with an organization or a company like yours, who I think what you're saying is you can do both through the platform and the service. You can be the strategist and the done for you company as well, at least in a lot of it. And that just makes a lot of sense to me too, for organizations to think about outsourcing. The other thing that, I talk about the dichotomy of, well, do we get the coordinator, the production level or the strategy level? Another thing that I have found, love your take on this, is I've got my own theory about it, and I'll say what it is. I see these organizations that have a marketing and communications department, and then they have a development department, resource development, in what the business world would call the sales department. Right? They're the ones raising the money. And they're two different departments. And yeah, maybe they communicate. Hopefully they do. And I'm sure in most cases they do. But are those two separate things, in your opinion? Sales, I think and marketing?
The best analogy you have, is to think of them like the nonprofit world is so good at changing the names of things, but it's the same stuff.
It's exactly right.
It's a donor journey. It's like, it's a sales cycle.
Yeah.
You're
They're
selling,
customers.
you know what I mean? Yeah. So we can just toggle the titles in and out. I mean, it is a sales and marketing scenario. And I think that's the easiest way to talk about it, probably for most listeners. And because you can see there's like a concentric circle there, right? If you have marketing and marketing just focuses on engagement and goes, yeah, we're getting a ton of traction, we're getting a bunch of people to the site, it's great. Like, just pick up.
We have Facebook followers.
Yeah. Just do something with it. It's like, well, how about there's a good handoff, right? How about when those leads come in, you vet them and you get them to fill out a form, so I know a little bit about them, so that when I jump into this conversation, it's personalized. And I know they've visited a few sites and asked our support team about pricing. And now you can jump into a more personalized sales process. Like, if you're doing it right, there should be a really good handoff there where you recognize the data, you recognize where somebody is at, and that move into that development side of the business is not, it's not done without a lot of intention and a lot of information. So I think it's the marketing teams, especially these days with how much of this I said before, the digital first, we have so much information. It's not that hard to move that information to that development team, so they're not starting from scratch. There's a lot of, overlap in those two groups. The other way I would take that conversation, though, too, is to say that they do need to be separated at times. Going out and fishing and trying to acquire new donors, that's a lot of work. And there's a lot that a marketing team needs to do to be able to get out there, vet them, validate them, get them in as a little, small time donor, get them to an event, or get them to even know about an event. But there's a handoff where all of a sudden you see all the signals that go, hey, this could be a great person for our team to support our work. Let's make this baton handoff a really clean transition. Let's take them out of all of our one-to-many marketing tools and take this to a personal relationship. This is a great person to have, in our back pocket. I think organizations that don't connect those two things, you're just putting so much effort into your vanity metrics of impressions. And if you can't drill that down to like, hey, yeah, no, that person filled it out, they're going to come, they're going to talk to Janet or whatever it ends up being, then you're spending a lot and you're not converting it into something that's actually going to grow your organization.
Yeah, that's good. I like the word handoff. I'm a little bit sort of tripped up by it too. In what I'm thinking about is what I see is all handoff. We do this and then we hand it off to you. What I don't see enough is co-creation. Not handing, we're building this together because we're having the conversations together about the people selling the product need to be able to communicate to the marketing technicians, for example. This is what we need. This is who will buy this product. These are the features and the benefits. So it's that co-creation. I like to think of it as, in the term marketing, you think of a market. And if you think of a market in its purest, most primitive sense, you picture a marketplace like you see on TV. People walk by and they're buying bread and fruit, and it's a market. And to me, that's what marketing is. It's being in a market, and which means you're selling something. And so to me, that's that it feels to me like we over separate them. yes, there are skill sets that that are different. You could probably make this analogy about any industry, actually, that there are different pieces of it that all come together. What I see a lot is the complete, almost silos of what they call marketing and then what they call development. And I wondered what your experience was with that.
Yeah, I like that analogy. So let's expand it a little bit. I think for me, there's maybe two roles in that analogy that I see marketing doing. I love that marketplace angle. And I think for you, when I see the concentric circles, I see the people inside of that market, right? It's the goods, the services, the people, the salespeople, that whole interactive relationship. That's in the concentric circles in my mind. I think we agree in that space. I think another part of marketing that is under, I don't want to say underutilized, but not talked about enough is the acquisition. So in this space, I would say like getting people to the market, right? In order for them to walk in that door, there's a lot of work there. Right. And that's where I see it a little bit more separate, is there's a lot of effort. Even just think of like search engine optimization, right? Like when people are looking for what you offer or the missional impact that you are creating, do you even show up? Right. And it used to be just search engine optimization. Right. Do the bots understand what your content is about and what your site is about? Now it's in this total rinse cycle of, okay, now we have AI and we have all this generative content and large language models, and how do they rate you? And I mean, just Google anything and look at the search results. It's 90% AI generated now. And are you even showing up anymore? And are you doing the things to show up there? Like that's a part of marketing that is maybe outside of that. There's so much work to get them into those doors. Once those doors open and they walk into the market, then I absolutely see the development teams, the marketing teams, you guys have to work together to tell stories, to engage, to draw people in, to upsell, to nurture, to ensure the product that was purchased is making people happy. Are they feeling brought into your mission? Like that is that marketplace. And I'm totally with you, Patrick. I think that's one thing. It's dangerous for organizations to take those into separate parts of the office and not let them be completely integrated in how they're talking. What are they sending out? What are they doing with their events? Like it's the same marketplace, right?
Well, I mean, so then you can bring in R&D, research and development, and the people that are making the product. They have to be a part of that conversation too. In the nonprofit world, that's your program directors, because that's the product you're selling. Is you're selling outcomes for some social change. And so how does marketing know what it's marketing? It's not just marketing the logo and the brand and the event. It's marketing a product. What's the product, and what's the co-creation and the collaboration between the product people, or in the nonprofit, as you said, they changed the terms, the program people, into marketing. And boy, there's one you hardly ever see those two meet. But anyway, so that we've hit on that one. Here's something I'm curious about in your work. When you work with clients, what's the biggest challenge you keep running into? What do you keep seeing nonprofits struggling with the most? Is it we have no clue how to find our donors? Is it we know where our donors are, but we don't have the tools, or we have the tools, but we don't know how to use the tools? Or what are some of the most common challenges you see repeatedly in your work?
Yeah, it's probably a little biased because they're coming to us with support or needing support in either like a technology space or a marketing space. But to go from that lens, I think the most common problem is that it feels like random acts of marketing, right? It is, hey, we're doing all these different things and we want to pay you to do more of those things. Hey, we want to run a social campaign. We want you to run an end of year capital campaign, right? But they are underinvested in prioritizing what they're doing and the systems that help them know what's working, right? Hey, we just need to send out 6 emails a month. Okay, what are they about? What are they generating? What's the data behind that? How many of your donors are actually responding to these emails? And there's typically, and I understand why, because teams are small, there's not a lot of data behind that. So you just get a lot of guesswork. Underfunded small teams trying to do more with less, right? They're there's a lot of guesswork there, and there's not a lot of budget to go, hey, let's research. Let's not put things in market. Let's research for 6 months on what's happening, and what, like, they don't have budget for that, right? So it's totally understandable. I think what we've tried to figure out is, how do we build software tools and how do we build services that help organizations recognize what's working and ruthlessly prioritize inside of those areas, right? To not do everything, but to say, hey, look, this is where your donors are coming from. So we're going to double down on your newsletter, or we're going to double down on, paid media or implementing Google ad grants, like giving organizations clarity on what's valuable to do and then not getting distracted. And that's even difficult in and amongst, a ongoing relationship where things come up, fires come up, and annual reports need to be written, or some bug with the email platform that double sent something. Like, there are things that feel like panic moments, and it's tricky. But I think the biggest thing we see is organizations just they're jumping around, putting out fires, and they're not holding themselves accountable to a strategic checklist, a roadmap of things that are really important, that are going to keep those dollars coming in, or whatever the goals are for that season, right? Yeah, I think that's it. Really, just not having the right strategic lens on, and kind of getting stuck in that space where you're not you're not prioritizing correctly.
Yeah, and so that's back to the strategist piece. It's just knowing what we're doing and why, what it is we're trying to achieve with it. Yeah. Another question for you. I don't know if it's a question, just a comment, I guess. One of the things I learned early on in my business is, you learn this pretty quickly. You can have a Facebook page and you can even have followers, but you're going to need to spend money. I mean, Facebook, people talk about, well, Facebook can find the people and profile them and, show up on their pages, and there's pixels and cookies and all these things that we don't know what they are, but we kind of do, but organizations spend money on that. They spend a lot of money on that. Spend a lot of money on Google still. Facebook advertising has its own platform just for getting your message to the right places, creating conversions and those kinds of things. How much of marketing strategy, once you have the tools, right, the platforms or such, how much of that can be done effectively without spending extra money all the time? Or do you feel like what I think I've learned, I could be wrong, is that no, you have the platforms as the starting point. You're going to have to spend money if you really want to get real marketing results. True or false?
It's got to be one of the other. I would say true. I'll throw in a couple exceptions if that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you're spending it one way or another, right? So SEO and kind of GEO based tactics, you don't have to pay to land on page one of search results, but you have to pay to make the content to get you there.
You got to be, you got to know how to do it.
Yeah. You're either paying an ad platform, or you're paying a really smart strategist to get you your, keywords and get your site ranking well. And then, some are short tail, some are long tail, kind of considered paid, and kind of SEO GEO strategy is like renting versus owning, right? If you need to get in front of people, renting is paid media, right? You just pay to get in front of people, or you invest in ownership, which means over time you own the term, you own top, for us, top nonprofit marketing agency, or you invest in putting enough content out there that people will find you consistently, right? The caveats, you get a great celebrity who's willing to peddle the cause for you. That's great. And that's a pro bono scenario, right? If a celebrity gets out there and does that, I would say that has less and less impact. It used to be that was just a one and done that can fund a mission. I feel like that's changed a lot too, just with this idea of trust in people. Trust everywhere is so low right now that trusting a celebrity, trusting a corporation, trusting even a church or a school, it's like we don't trust anybody. So all these efforts to get people over to your cause are not delivering like they used to, but they are in some degree some version of either upfront cost or opportunity cost. And
that's the one right there.
Yeah, and look
opportunity
where,
cost. We don't calculate that one.
yeah, and we don't do enough of just looking at the for-profit world as inspiration, right? They are
Hmm.
solely motivated by revenue.
That's right.
What are they doing? They're taking a massive percentage of their revenue and putting it into sales and
They're
marketing, which
reinvesting it.
is
Yeah.
they're reinvesting it, right? And I know organizations get their hands tied behind their backs with their 990s and where they can spend money, and that's its own entire conversation around why do we treat nonprofits different than for profits? Like we need them to scale more than the next bank or the next, headphone company, but we don't let them spend money on the one thing that will let them grow, which is this idea of sales and marketing and growing their mission and everything else. But there's no platform where your content just goes in front of people like it used to, the origin days of Facebook. That content get out there. Now you pay to boost it. You pay to put it in front of the right audience.
Pay to play. Yeah.
You pay to play almost everywhere. And I don't think there's any channel that you can rely on long-term to not monetize what you're doing on their platform to get an audience.
That makes so much sense. And the mindset in the social sector is, well, we're not corporations. We don't have that kind of money. You may know some numbers on this. Back in the early to mid 90s, I was in the newspaper world, newspaper advertising. And, that was a time when we print newspaper was still a thing and a big thing. And we used to, I don't remember where I picked this up, but somewhere we got the notion that the average company, like corporate advertising budgeter, was like 6% of their budget, just advertising, not PR, not communications, not some of the, but just the advertising budget, 6% on average. And so, then we talked about, well, what share of that is radio getting and newspaper and television and, all these other things. When I got into the nonprofit sector and you start trying to put together a marketing budget and you look at what the history has been in the organizations, like, wait a minute, you have no marketing budget, literally none, zero, nothing, or you've budgeted $1,000 or $2,000 so that you can print a brochure to hand out places or whatever. And for the organizations that had significant marketing budget in comparison, they were still only 1% of their whole budgets. Yeah. And for some reason, the mindset in the sector is, well, we shouldn't have to spend. We shouldn't have to spend 5% or 6% of our budgets on marketing because we're a cause. People ought to be giving to us they don't want us spending that money on the marketing, and we have a cause. But I've just not found that to work effectively. I've not really seen it work where you can get away with that. You've got to invest is the right word. You've got to invest in it, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, the terminology of like, we shouldn't have to, sure. In an altruistic sense.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. We should all care more
but
and
you
be
do.
more. Yeah. But in the end, I mean, just to give a good anecdote to that, when we did work with Invisible Children, touring, showing documentaries, this is about war that's going on in Uganda and child soldiers, stuff like that. We would tour and we would raise so much more money from the merch booth than from just asking for dollars, right? There needed to be something that people got back, something they could represent, something. There was a give and take in that relationship. So even in a scenario where people are giving money, they still want something back. There's something human about that. There's something that even in our most altruistic nature, like I'd rather like get a pair of running shoes and give a pair of shoes to somebody than like go online and just find an organization and give $100. Like there's just, selfish or not, there's all sorts of persuasion techniques and sociological studies around. Yeah. And just there's a certain amount of selfishness in all altruistic behavior. It makes us feel good. It makes it like we're still driven by our own, what makes us happy, right? Guilty conscience or just benevolence. And so all that aside, like, yes, you have to spend money on attracting and bringing people to your organization, regardless of how good the cause is, right? And to the numbers, I think that, anywhere from 7, 5, 10, 15%, it ranges by market, by industry. I mean, to me, I think nonprofits should almost need to spend more, because this isn't money solving a problem for the consumer and the donor. It's, you're going to give me $100. I'm not going to give you anything back other than story and a pat on your back. Like, you almost have to market more, because this isn't even solving a day-to-day problem that I need. It's not a light bulb or a shoe or some problem. It's something where I'm going above and beyond my personal needs to help somebody else. You're going to need more of a marketing budget to convince people to do something like that. But if you look at how we judge nonprofits, we say, hey, if you're spending more than 10 to 15% of your money on administrative costs, you're a bad organization. So right there, that's your whole ad budget right there. And you have to worry about salaries and internal stuff. Like, there's so much to cover in that percentage. So imagine trying to be a successful business where you can't market, you can't sell, you have to give away 80%, 80 to 90% of your money to your cause.
You can't pay your people market rate.
You're handcuffed. Yeah. Now you can't keep good staff. And so it's a very difficult industry to be in.
Well, it forces
us to be really efficient.
Yeah. That whole overhead conversation has improved. There's been some movement on that sort of expectation. But don't get me. Yeah, I should stop, because I'll go another hour on the whole overhead thing and the term and what is administrative. These are arbitrary terms in some ways. It's like, it's all mission. It's all required. It's called capacity. We need the capacity to deliver on our mission. And we more and more organizations are thinking that way. Foundations are starting to think that way. There's been some big sort of national movements on that, but it has a long way to go, to your point.
Yeah. And I feel like most of that shift has been at the cleverness of organizations, more so saying, no, these are all program expenses.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's not the consumer giving us more freedom. They're still going, no. When I want every dollar to go to the cause. I mean, think of tipping and donation forms. It's like, no. Like, that's when I give, I want to see that child get all $100. And it's like, well, then I can't get the next donor. I can't spread the cause. I can't grow the organization.
That's right.
So it's just interesting. It's like you said, it's a whole nother podcast episode, but interesting for people to think about how damaging that is for organizations when they're asking them to do that, to earmark funds and all. It makes such a headache for organizations. I'd encourage you to chase down giving to organizations in an unsolicited manner or unearmarked manner. Just let them grow. Let them.
All right. I'm going to put you on the spot once more, and then we'll do our wrap up questions. You're a small nonprofit organization. Small as in, I don't know, maybe you've got a $2 million budget annually. And most of that's payroll, because you have a staff, and maybe that is heavy program staff, but you're paying your people. And you really have not spent money in marketing. And you've built a history and a habit of budgeting that just doesn't pay for it. Maybe your board culture says we don't pay for marketing, right? And suddenly the board says, all right, Javin, as the CEO, we're going to put in the budget. We're going to approve $100,000 a year over the next 2 years. And this is just a test thing. We're going to be $100,000. You right now, you have no marketing staff. You don't really spend anything. You do have a website, but you have very minimal, like what you would call marketing. And we're gonna do this. We're gonna fund it out of our reserve. We're gonna give you $100,000 a year for the next 2 years. But it needs to be an investment, and it needs to work. You keep telling us we need marketing, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna trust you. What do you spend that money on?
Well, to start, let's go back to that fractional leadership scenario. Let's start with getting the resources at the table for that organization to make an educated guess on where the issues are, right? Because you're going to have to understand three things, like the kind of three verticals for our agency work is Where's your brand and your brand story? Is it solid? You're not going to get anywhere without a clear mission, clear audience. What problems are you solving? Can you tell your story? Are you credible? Do you have your brand house sorted? If you do, you then move into the places that people interact with that brand. Key kind of focus point number one, what we consider like your hardest working, like digital employee, is your website. You can take people from every social channel and every place and every email to a landing kind of ground zero experience. So is your website solid? Is it searchable? Is the UX good? Is the storytelling good? Are the assets good? Can it do its job? And if you've got those two lined up, then it moves into marketing rhythms and finding the places where you can be operating that will drive revenue. So if the brand is good and you've got that core converting ecosystem of a website, then we're moving into what are we doing? What channels are we on? Are we leaning into content? Are we leaning into paid? And that's the model that we've tried to build as an agency, is then quarterly. How do you execute a quarterly plan? What are you trying? We kind of have an 80-20 rule. Take whatever is working, if it's SEO or it's paid or it's email newsletter or it's gala events or it's in-person solicitations, 80% of your effort goes there. 20% of your effort goes to finding the next thing that works, the next strategy, and you rinse and repeat. You do that every 3 months, get into the rhythms. There's no silver bullet. I even as an entrepreneur, I still shoot for that. What's the next thing we're going to launch? What's the next vertical? Rarely do you find them, if ever. This is a repetition game. Keep pumping out the content, keep doing the ads, keep doing the podcast episodes, keep going back to the data, shed what's not working, operationalize what is working, and keep going.
That's all good stuff. You affirmed something for me that I heard a good ways back, which is your website is the one piece of online real estate that you completely own and control. Everything else you are renting, right? Facebook is not your interface. You don't have any control. I mean, you can design your ad, but you don't have any control over the interface that it goes on or how it operates, all of the social media stuff. And so I heard somebody say once that he said, I see all these organizations putting on their website, hey, visit us on Facebook. Hey, visit us on Twitter and visit us on... And he said it's almost the opposite. It's fine to have your social media links on your website, but they think that the website is there to drive people to your social media, and it's the opposite. You want to drive people back to your home that you completely control and create the interaction and the engagement and the transactions there, which is why the website is so important. And so does that resonate? Does that sound right? In your theory?
Unless you're a content creator and you make money off of YouTube views, then you got to switch that around. I mean, there are use cases for those tools. I mean, everybody wants to own their social communities, but you're not going to rebuild Facebook, and you're not going to get all of those people from Facebook over to some community ecosystem on your own website that you own. Let Facebook be Facebook, let TikTok be TikTok. Like if you want to engage people there, absolutely. And if somebody wants to join a group, groups on Facebook are really valuable. You can do that. But the idea is to generate revenue. You want to bring them back in that other direction. So you want to get them back to you. And that is, 24/7 employee who's answering questions and responding and giving people information and taking transactions. Like it is employee number one, right? Brand. Once you have brand situated, that can last for a while. You give everybody what your 5 to 10 key messages are, and that's for your development team and your marketing team and your agency partners. Like that's a little bit of a set and forget, at least for 3-6 month windows where you can lock that in. But your website should be ever growing. Content should be ever growing. You should be answering questions. You should see what type of search is happening and put content out there about it, and let that thing be working constantly to educate people and convert people. And then I'm kind of alluding to some of those marketing rhythms, which is like feed it content, feed it users, test that, see what markets, build a page for a different demographic or put up a gala page to get, double your gala registrations. Like those are the rhythms that you need to get into. And again, I'm focusing on a lot of digital things. There's plenty of offline things, the events, the direct mail, the in-person, especially in more of the political spaces. You can get into some of the canvassing models. Like there's a lot of models. But if you're talking kind of the logistics of taking a budget and just starting from scratch, spend some time auditing, make sure you can validate that audit either with fractional leadership or with some people, get a couple sets of eyes on that before you dive into what your priority projects are. But think about your brand story, think about your digital tools, and then think about what rhythms are worth investing in order to generate some of that engagement.
Man, that's good. That's good stuff. That I think is probably the most practical part of this conversation. That's very helpful because there's so many organizations that are in the space that I just described to you. So yeah, get the expertise, strategy, and brand. Get your home real estate that you can build and expand, and then figure out the tools. Test them, pilot them, test them. Ditch the ones that aren't working, double down on the ones that are, and then spend a little effort finding new ones. Get a rhythm. I love it. I love it.
And that little plug for Donately, right? If the site needs the donation forms, or if you need to be running consistent campaigns, you need to be trying different things. It's a great tool for that, right? Be able to make sure the site can convert, make sure that you can be spinning up campaigns on a regular basis, trying different things. We've got functionality for card items, so you can sell virtual products, you can sell real products, you can do ticket registrations, you can do crowdfunding and peer-to-peer. Like there's so many ways to try it out, see what fits with your customers and your donors. And like I said before, if it works, that's a yearly thing you're now going to do, right? If back to school is good for you, great. Now you've got a back to school campaign you can run every August. Try stuff out, encourage people to try things just with how much, the world is changing with digital. There's no wrong campaign to run. Just try it, see what works, and go from there.
Yeah. And we'll have it on our episode page at theleadersperspective.com. But I'll just remind everyone now, two websites really to check out if you want to learn more about this on the platform side. As Javin just mentioned, donately.com, the word donate and then ly, donately.com. And the other one is 50and50.org, which is, use the words 50, not the numbers, but 50and50.org/podcast, and use the /podcast. That'll be the link we put on the site, because there's there could be some opportunities for some entry points and some discounts and special things to look at there. So, Javin, 2 questions I like to ask all my guests before I wrap an episode. The first one is, who is a leader in your life? Who comes to mind as a leader in your life, whether you know them or not, but someone who's had tremendous impact on your leadership and on your view of leadership, and why?
Yeah, I've got 2 mentors. I guess I'll just give them personal shout outs. Thad Callow is an individual I know here in San Diego. Just been great. Jumping in, runs an agency, runs great team, marketing team here in San Diego, and just has been instrumental in me recognizing shifts I need to make, really more of a for-profit marketing thinker. So how do we treat the nonprofit world a little bit more like the business world, and how do we make good decisions, and how do I get out of my own head? And just been a great mentor. And then another individual, Kevin Schneider, just somebody I know here in North County, just spending his time being willing to coach me. And he's been in the agency world and the application world, and just helping me make less mistakes, recognize when the mistakes are being made, just, not having a full board, being a smaller boutique agency and smaller SaaS product. It's, just having those individuals that can help support and kind of shift your mindset on things been great for both of them. So shout out to both of you, Thad, Kevin. Thanks for all your support.
That's awesome. That's good recognition. We have a lot of those people in our lives we don't pause and thank. So that's good stuff. Last question. You're at the top of a mountain with a megahorn, and at the bottom of the mountain are all the leaders in the world, people trying to lead people. In 15 seconds, what would you tell them is the most important thing they need to keep in mind as leaders? What's the What is the Javin Van Gronigan 15-second soundbite on the top tenet of leadership? What does it come down to?
Man, I think for me, it was about passion. Just to stay passionate about what you're building. Continue to carve what it is you're doing into something that means the world to you as an individual, and then make sure that you can distill that to the people around you. It's noticeable. I don't think you can fake that. I think you have to love what you're doing. I think you have to love it enough that people can jump on and follow that vision with you. And if that's a pivot, it's a pivot, but you only live once. So I would say don't build anything that you don't love, and make sure everybody can love it with you.
I love that. And you bringing me back to the term at the beginning of the call, ethically defensible. I like that too. Javin, thanks. You've shared a lot here. And I do want to urge our listeners, if you're in that space, and I know a lot of you are, because I know a lot of you, you're in that space where someone like 50 and 50, someone like Javin can help you. Reach out, because we got to do this. We got to do it. Donately.com, 50and50.org/podcast. And we'll see you here next time. In the meantime, lead on.